Hi, my name is Kerry Payne and I'm an early years advisor with a specialism in special educational needs, disability, wellbeing and behaviour. Today I'm going to be delivering a mini webinar around a concept known as Behaviour Detectives. Today we're going to be learning about why behaviour is used as a form of communication in early childhood. We're going to be looking at the difference between policing behaviour and investigating the reasons why children have certain behaviours. And then I'm going to talk to you about a simple strategy, commonly known as the ABC strategy, but with a little twist to give you some further ideas on how you can develop strong whole team strategies for supporting and helping children with their behaviour. Behaviour as a form of communication is probably something as an early years practitioner that you've heard a lot about. So when young children are learning language, they're learning communication and they're learning to regulate and understand their different feelings and emotions, they will often turn to behaviour as a way of communicating particular needs and particular feelings, frustrations. And what we do know about behaviour is it does get results quite quickly. So for example, if you've got a child that really is not in the mood to share, they want to access a particular toy or resource, often it's much easier and much quicker to hit out or to have a tantrum to get that resource than to use words or to be able to indicate the need for help. As a teacher or a practitioner, often our instinct when children misbehave or do things that are perceived as quite challenging, our instinct is to control that behaviour, to police it, to put a consequence in place as part of our teaching. But often when a child demonstrates or has a behaviour that's reoccurring, it's much more important that we start to understand the reasons why that behaviour might be happening and then supporting that child to find strategies that work for them and for the whole setting. A few years ago, I was speaking to an educational psychologist around the different behaviours that we see in early years, and she gave a really good analogy for how we should be approaching behaviour. The first thing that she said is that with children's behaviour, and particularly in the early years, what we have to acknowledge is that a lot of what we see is developmentally appropriate and it is developmentally expected. So for example, I would expect to see that some 2-year-olds will choose to bite in order to communicate a need. If a 5-year-old is biting, that would be an area of concern. So what we have to acknowledge is that there are things we are going to see throughout the early lifespan with children. And once we're able to look at the reasons behind that, why that is happening, then we're in a position to actually put a strategy in place. The educational psychologist describes this as looking at yourself from going from that policing role, so that role where you go in and you're there to ensure that routines are maintained, that behaviour is well managed, and that children respond well to consequence and punishment, and that then minimises behaviour. So moving on from that policing role, which we do need to a certain degree to ensure that all children are kept safe, but actually viewing yourself in the role of a detective. And so the detective is there to investigate, why is this behaviour happening? What patterns am I seeing? What evidence is there to tell me why this behaviour might be occurring every single day? For example, the child that bites every day or the child that has a tantrum. And by looking at this, what we're saying to children, what we're communicating back to children is that your behaviour isn't something that I'm just going to punish, it's something that I'm going to try to understand and I'm going to work with you to find a strategy that works. As an advisor, I would often get queries from early years teachers and practitioners who felt frustrated, annoyed, de-skilled when dealing with different types of behaviour. And the advice that I would often give is look for the patterns and look for the reasons why. The other big piece of advice is do not expect behaviour to be minimised or stopped overnight. Try to view that challenging behaviour as a habit. And what we know about habits is they're often very difficult to break out of. And so what your role is as a practitioner and as a teacher is to help that child to form new positive habits as a response to their more challenging behaviour. So we're now going to look at a tool that you can use to monitor and to find patterns in children's different behaviours. Now this tool is a bit of a twist on the original ABC chart. It's actually called an ABCD chart, and the reason for that is what I often find as an advisor is when I am giving advice to a teacher or a practitioner, we're not always just looking at the child's behaviour, we're looking at the effectiveness and the quality of the practice. And practitioners have to acknowledge that in order to support children's behaviour, there may be amendments that need to be made in the way that they deal with that behaviour and their overall practice. So I'm just going to give you a brief overview of the detail of the ABCDE chart. So what you would start with when you are monitoring a pattern of behaviour is you would look at the antecedent. So the antecedent, always difficult to pronounce, but it basically means what happened before the main behaviour occurred. So it might be that the child was asked to do something, or the child had shown agitation or restlessness, and then you give some detail around the behaviour. So child bit another child, or child hit out, or child became very distressed and had a tantrum. And then what you're going to be looking at, and this is really key, what was the consequence? Now, as you build up a record of these behaviours, you're going to really focus on what happened before and what happened after. The reason for that being is you want to look whether there is a consistency in how that behaviour is dealt with and how that behaviour is supported. So you will also want to look at who deals with the behaviour. A common occurrence in early years is that you have children who may misbehave, and what happens is lots of different people address that behaviour. It becomes like a too many cooks in the kitchen. So it might be that you go, actually I can see there's been a different consequence every day and it's been dealt with a different person every day. An easy remedy for that is to create consistency and say, okay, these are the people that would deal with that particular behaviour. It's not always going to be perfect, but as long as you can ensure that's held to account in most cases, then that can really support the child's understanding of consequence. And then you're going to be asking yourself, are there a particular pattern or trigger for that behaviour? So a major trigger for behaviour in early years is tiredness. We often see, when children are due to go down for their afternoon naps, that they may become restless and agitated, and they may bite another child, or they may hit out, or they may just become very, very stressed. And so you're going to be looking at, are there any triggers? And then you're going to be asking yourself, what effective strategy can I use to ensure that this child is supported through this experience? And this gives you a real opportunity to reflect on how you support behaviour as a whole. To further support you with the ABCDE chart, you can actually access this chart on our website www.eyfsforme.com, and you can download as many copies as you want to start getting used to looking for patterns and triggers of behaviour. Of course, what we do know with behaviour is that it is very broad in terms of the amount of behaviours you might see in early years. And so if you would like any additional advice or information, then you can visit our website. You can follow my Twitter account at EYFS4M, which often gives signposts and links around behaviour. You can contact me directly on the number on the slide, or you can email me at info@eyfsforme.com. So please do get in touch if you've got any questions around behavioural issues and challenges in your early years setting. And that brings us to the end of the webinar on Behaviour Detectives. Thank you very much.